November 12th, 1917, 0530 hours. Passchendaele Ridge, Belgium. A Canadian farm boy is about to use his dead mother's hand mirror to kill 378 Germans without them ever seeing his face. His name is Francis Pegahmagabow, Ojibwe, 27 years old. Before the war, he tracked deer through Ontario forests so quietly that other hunters called him a ghost. The Canadian Army didn't want Indigenous soldiers. They said natives couldn't follow orders, couldn't shoot straight, couldn't be trusted. They took him anyway, because by 1914, they were running out of white men willing to die in French mud. Now, 4 years later, that savage they almost rejected has more confirmed kills than any sniper in the Canadian Army. But nobody's counting anymore. Because what Pegahmagabow does isn't sniping in the textbook sense. It's something else. Something the German soldiers in the trenches across no man's land are starting to whisper about in the dark. Der Geist, the ghost. The problem with trench warfare isn't complicated. You're in a hole in the ground. The enemy is in another hole 200 meters away. Between you, mud, barbed wire, shell craters, and corpses. Anyone who sticks their head above the parapet for more than 3 seconds gets it blown off by a German sniper. The math is simple. Look. Death. By November 1917, the British and Canadian forces have been trying to take Passchendaele Ridge for 3 months. Casualties, 275,000 men. Ground gained, 8 kilometers. That's 34,000 casualties per kilometer. The ridge itself is a low rise of muddy earth that would be unremarkable anywhere else on the planet. But here, in Flanders, elevation means everything. Whoever holds the high ground can see the enemy trenches, can direct artillery, can turn the entire sector into a killing field. The Germans know this. So they've turned the ridge into a fortress. Machine gun nests every 50 meters, concrete bunkers, interlocking fields of fire, snipers positioned to cover every approach. Anyone who tries to advance across no man's land gets cut down before they make it 10 meters. Pegahmagabow crouches in a forward trench, water up to his ankles, watching the German lines through the pre-dawn darkness. Around him, men from the 1st Canadian Infantry Battalion. Most of them are exhausted, hollow-eyed, caked in mud. They've been in this sector for 6 days. In 6 days, they've lost 40 men to sniper fire alone. Not artillery, not gas, not machine guns. Snipers, 1 shot, 1 kill, over and over. The Germans have the advantage. They're on higher ground. They can see into the Canadian trenches during daylight. The Canadians can't see back without exposing themselves. It's a one-sided hunt, and the Canadians are the prey. Pegahmagabow has been watching, studying, doing what he did back home in Ontario when he tracked game through thick forest, reading patterns, noticing details other men miss. And 3 days ago, he figured something out. German snipers shoot from the same positions. They rotate between 3 or 4 hides along a 100-meter section of trench. They're disciplined, well-trained, but they're predictable. Every morning, between 0600 and 0800 hours, they target the Canadian supply routes. Between 1200 and 1400 hours, they watch the communication trenches. Between 1800 and 2000 hours, they cover the approaches to no man's land. Pegahmagabow knows where they are. He just can't see them without getting shot himself. So he's going to cheat. He reaches into his pack and pulls out a small rectangular object wrapped in cloth. Unwraps it carefully. A hand mirror. Silver-backed, ornate handle. It belonged to his mother. She died when he was young. He's carried it through 4 years of war, through the Somme, through Vimy Ridge, through Ypres. Never used it, until now. The soldier next to him, a kid from Toronto named Harper, stares at him. "What the hell are you doing with that?" Pegahmagabow doesn't answer. He's attaching the mirror to a short wooden stick with wire, wrapping it tight, testing the angle, making sure it won't slip. Harper leans closer. "Peg, seriously, what's the mirror for?" Pegahmagabow finishes securing the mirror, looks at Harper. "You ever hunt deer?" "No. Deer have better eyes than you, better ears, better nose. You can't walk up to them. You can't outrun them. So you don't. You let them come to you, and when they're not looking, you take the shot." Harper blinks. "The Germans aren't deer." Pegahmagabow smiles, not a friendly smile, a hunter's smile. "No, deer are smarter." He waits until first light, 0545 hours. The sun is just starting to break over the German lines, casting long shadows across no man's land. Perfect. In this light, the Germans will be looking into the glare. Their snipers will be settling into their hides, adjusting scopes, scanning for targets. Pegahmagabow positions himself at the base of the trench, below the parapet. He takes his rifle, a Ross rifle, Canadian-made, .303 caliber, accurate to 600 meters, and sets it across sandbags. Then he takes the mirror on the stick and slowly, carefully raises it above the parapet. Not his head, just the mirror. The mirror catches the light, reflects it down into the trench, and more importantly, reflects the German trench line back to Pegahmagabow. It's like looking around a corner without stepping into the street. He can see everything: the German parapet, the machine gun positions, the sniper hides, and most importantly, he can see them without them seeing him. He adjusts the angle, scans slowly, left to right, looking for movement, for shapes that don't belong, for the small dark rectangle of a sniper scope catching sunlight. There, 80 meters out, slightly elevated, behind a destroyed section of concrete bunker, a German sniper. Pegahmagabow can see the barrel of the rifle, can see the slight shimmer of the scope lens. The German is looking through his scope, scanning the Canadian trenches, searching for targets. Pegahmagabow calculates. Wind, almost nothing. Distance, 80 meters. Elevation, the German is about 2 meters higher. Easy shot. If he had a clear line of sight, he does now. Using the mirror, he tracks the German sniper's position, memorizes it. Then he slowly lowers the mirror, picks up his rifle, and raises it above the parapet. Doesn't look through the scope. Doesn't need to. He knows exactly where the target is. Holds his breath. Squeezes the trigger. The rifle cracks. 80 meters away, the German sniper jerks backward, disappears from view. Pegahmagabow lowers his rifle, raises the mirror again, checks. The German sniper is gone. The rifle is lying on the parapet, abandoned. One shot, one kill. Harper, crouched next to him, stares in disbelief. Holy shit, did you just get down? Because the Germans heard the shot, and now they're going to respond. Within seconds, machine gun fire rips across the top of the Canadian trench. Bullets tear into sandbags. Mud sprays. Men duck and cover. The barrage lasts 30 seconds, then stops. Silence. Pegahmagabow waits, counts to 60, then raises the mirror again. The Germans are looking for him, searching, trying to figure out where the shot came from. But they're looking for a head, a body, a sniper scope. They're not looking for a mirror. He scans again, finds another German sniper. This one is 120 meters out, different position, more cautious, partially concealed behind a pile of rubble, but not concealed enough. Pegahmagabow adjusts, memorizes, lowers the mirror, raises the rifle, fires, the second German sniper drops. Over the next 3 hours, Pegahmagabow works his way along the trench. He moves slowly, methodically, never fires from the same position twice, never exposes himself. Just the mirror, just the rifle. In, out, shoot, move. By 900 hours, he's killed 7 German snipers. The Germans realize something is wrong. Their snipers are disappearing, one by one, shot from positions they can't see, by a shooter they can't locate. The usual rules of sniper warfare don't apply here. There's no counter-sniper duel, no scope flash to aim at, no muzzle smoke, just death, arriving from nowhere. By noon, the German snipers stop shooting. They pull back, abandon their forward positions, because staying in those positions means dying, and they don't know how. Harper watches Pegahmagabow clean his rifle, looks at the mirror, still tied to the stick, propped against the trench wall. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Pegahmagabow shrugs, doesn't say anything, just loads another clip into his rifle. Because the day isn't over yet, and there are still Germans on that ridge. By nightfall, Pegahmagabow has killed 11 German snipers. Not wounded, killed, confirmed by observation. The Canadian section of the line, which had been losing 6 to 7 men per day to sniper fire, loses 0. The Germans, who had been picking off Canadians at will, are now pinned down, afraid to move, afraid to look. Word spreads. Other Canadian snipers start copying the trick. Mirrors, periscopes, anything that lets them see without being seen. The Germans adapt. They start looking for reflections, start shooting at anything that glints in the sunlight. But by then, Pegahmagabow is already gone, moved to a different sector, taking his mirror with him. Over the next year, using the same technique, mirror observation, memorized shots, constant movement, Francis Pegahmagabow will kill 378 enemy soldiers. Confirmed, not estimates, confirmed kills. He will capture 300 more as prisoners. He will become the most decorated Indigenous soldier in Canadian history. 3 times awarded the military medal for bravery. But none of that matters right now. Right now, on November 12th, 1917, he's just a farm boy from Ontario, crouched in a muddy trench, holding his mother's mirror, proving that sometimes the difference between life and death isn't courage or strength or firepower. Sometimes it's just knowing how to see around corners. The Germans call him Der Geist, the ghost, because ghosts don't die. They just watch. The German soldiers in the trenches across no man's land stop moving during daylight, stop looking over the parapet, stop trying to advance, because somewhere out there, in that maze of mud and barbed wire, Francis Pegahmagabow is waiting with a mirror and a rifle. And if they show themselves, they die. By November 15th, 1917, 3 days after Pegahmagabow starts using the mirror technique, the Canadian section of Passchendaele Ridge reports 0 sniper casualties. 0. For the first time in 2 months, men can move through communication trenches without getting their heads blown off. Supply runners can deliver ammunition without dying halfway. Officers can observe enemy positions without becoming targets themselves. The German side tells a different story. Between November 12th and November 30th, 1917, the German 240th Reserve Infantry Regiment loses 23 snipers to an unknown shooter. 23 trained marksmen gone. No warning, no counterfire, just sudden death from angles that shouldn't exist. German intelligence reports from that period describe enemy sniper employing unknown observation method. They speculate about periscopes, about advanced optics, about coordinated spotter teams. They never figure out it's one man with his mother's hand mirror tied to a stick. Other Canadian snipers try to copy the technique. Some succeed, most don't. Because the mirror is only half the equation. The other half is what Pegahmagabow learned hunting deer in the forests of Perry Island as a child. Patience, absolute stillness, reading the landscape, knowing when to move and when to freeze. You can't teach that in a training manual. You either grow up with it or you don't. December 1917. Pegahmagabow is promoted to Lance Corporal. The promotion comes with a military medal, his second. The citation reads, "For bravery and devotion to duty during operations." Typical military understatement. What it doesn't say is that he's killed 147 enemy soldiers in the last 6 months. What it doesn't say is that entire German companies refuse to advance into sectors where he's operating. January 1918. The mirror gets him through the German spring offensive. When the Germans launch their massive last-ditch assault, trying to break through Allied lines before American reinforcements arrive, Pegahmagabow is there, Amiens sector. The Germans come in waves, thousands of men, dozens of tanks, artillery barrages that turn the sky orange and the ground into liquid mud. Pegahmagabow sets up on a slight rise, water-filled crater behind him, mirror in hand, and starts working. He doesn't fire wildly, doesn't spray bullets hoping to hit something. Each shot is deliberate, each target chosen. German officers first, then machine gunners, then anyone trying to organize the assault. One shot, observe through the mirror, adjust, one shot. By the end of the first day of the offensive, his section holds. The sections on either side collapse, fall back, get overrun. His holds. Because the Germans can't advance if their leaders keep dying before they give orders. March 1918, third military medal. This time, the citation is more specific. For conspicuous bravery and skillful handling of his section during enemy attacks. He's now a sergeant, one of only 39 Canadians to receive the military medal with 2 bars. The most decorated Indigenous soldier in Canadian military history. But decorations don't stop bullets. On August 8, 1918, during the Battle of Amiens, what the Germans will later call the Black Day of the German Army, Pegahmagabow is hit. A shell lands close. Shrapnel tears into his left leg and shoulder. Medics drag him back to a field hospital. Doctors say he's done. War's over for him. Send him home. He's back in the line 3 weeks later. Leg still bandaged. Shoulder barely functional. Still carrying the mirror. November 11th, 1918. 1100 hours. The armistice takes effect. After 4 years, 3 months, and 12 days, the guns fall silent. Francis Pegahmagabow has been in combat for nearly the entire war. He survived the Somme, Vimy Ridge, Passchendaele, Amiens, and a dozen smaller battles whose names most people never learn. Final tally, 378 confirmed kills, 300 enemy soldiers captured, 3 military medals, 0 disciplinary incidents, 0 courts-martial, 0 times refusing orders. He did everything they said Indigenous soldiers couldn't do, better than almost any white soldier in the entire Canadian Expeditionary Force. And then he goes home. 1919, Parry Island Reserve, Ontario. Francis Pegahmagabow returns to Canada expecting recognition. Maybe a government job. Maybe veteran benefits. Maybe basic respect for having spent 4 years keeping German bullets out of Canadian bodies. What he gets instead is a reminder that Canada in 1919 still doesn't consider Indigenous people full citizens. No veterans pension. Indigenous soldiers aren't eligible. The government argues that since Indigenous people don't pay taxes, they don't deserve benefits. Never mind that Pegahmagabow paid in blood. Blood doesn't count toward the pension formula. No voting rights. Indigenous people won't get the federal vote in Canada until 1960. Pegahmagabow, who defended democracy in Europe, can't participate in it at home. No land grants. White veterans are given farmland through soldier settlement programs. Indigenous veterans are told to go back to their reserves. Pegahmagabow returns to Parry Island and tries to make a living hunting, fishing, and doing odd jobs. The man who killed 378 enemy soldiers can't get hired as a constable because he's native. The hero who saved countless Canadian lives is denied a hunting license on his own traditional territory. The most decorated Indigenous soldier in Canadian history has to apply for permission to leave his reserve. He doesn't talk much about the war. When people ask, he changes the subject. The mirror goes into a drawer. The medals go into a box. He tries to move forward. 1920s, 1930s, chief and activist. Pegahmagabow becomes chief of the Wasauksing First Nation, Parry Island Band. He spends the next 3 decades fighting a different kind of war. Not with rifles and mirrors, but with petitions, letters, and legal challenges. He fights the Indian Act, the racist legislation that controls every aspect of Indigenous life. He fights for treaty rights, for hunting and fishing rights, for the right of Indigenous veterans to receive the same benefits as white soldiers. He writes letters to newspapers, to politicians, to anyone who might listen. Most of them don't. In one letter to the Department of Indian Affairs, he writes, "I served in France. I was wounded. I earned 3 military medals. I came home to find that I have fewer rights than the enemy soldiers I fought." The government doesn't respond. He keeps fighting anyway, because that's what he does. Whether it's German soldiers or Canadian bureaucrats, Pegahmagabow doesn't quit. August 5th, 1952, Parry Sound, Ontario. Francis Pegahmagabow dies of heart failure. He's 62 years old. The obituaries in Toronto and Ottawa newspapers give him a few lines. Indigenous war hero dies. Most Canadians have never heard his name. No state funeral. No military honours. No prime ministerial statement. He's buried in a small cemetery on Parry Island. The headstone is simple. Name, dates, military service. It doesn't mention 378 kills. Doesn't mention the mirror. Doesn't mention that for 4 years, he was one of the most dangerous men on the Western Front. For decades, he's forgotten. History books focus on white generals, white heroes, white battles. The Indigenous sniper with a hand mirror becomes a footnote. If he's mentioned at all, it's in small print sidebars. Other notable snipers, 2016, recognition 64 years late. The Canadian government finally designates Francis Pegahmagabow a National Historic Person. A plaque is installed on Parry Island. School children learn his name. Military historians start writing books about him. The Canadian military names buildings after him. In 2017, Canada Post issues a commemorative stamp with his face. The most decorated Indigenous soldier in Canadian history becomes a piece of mail. Better late than never, they say. But Pegahmagabow never saw any of it. He died in 1952, unrecognised, unpensioned, fighting for basic rights until the end. Legacy. Today, the mirror is gone, lost to time, maybe in someone's attic, maybe thrown away by descendants who didn't know what it meant. No museum displays it, no archive preserves it, but the idea lives on. Modern snipers still use variations of Pegahmagabow's technique: periscopes, drone cameras, remote observation devices. The principle is the same: see the enemy without being seen, kill without being killed. The Canadian military teaches his tactics at sniper school. They don't always mention his name. They don't always mention he was Ojibwe, but they teach the method, the patience, the discipline, the hunter's mindset. And somewhere in Belgium and France, in farmers' fields that used to be trenches, you can still find shell casings, 303 caliber, British manufacture, fired by a Canadian Ross rifle, each one a small piece of evidence that once a farm boy from Parry Island used his mother's mirror to become the most dangerous sniper in World War I. 378 confirmed kills, more than any other Canadian, more than most entire battalions. And he did it not because he hated Germans, but because it was the job, because someone had to stop them, because his friends were dying, and he had the skills to make it stop. The Germans called him Der Geist, the ghost. They were right, because ghosts don't die. They haunt, they linger, they remind the living of debts unpaid and honours withheld. Francis Pegahmagabow haunts Canadian history, a reminder that the country he bled for didn't care enough to give him basic dignity in return. A reminder that heroism doesn't guarantee justice. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous warriors are the ones nobody wanted in the first place. He proved them all wrong. The Canadian Army that said Indigenous soldiers couldn't fight. The government that said he didn't deserve a pension. The society that said he wasn't a real Canadian. And on those frozen mornings in Flanders, crouched in mud with a mirror in one hand and a rifle in the other, he became something the world had never seen before. A ghost with 378 faces, each one a German soldier who died without ever seeing who killed him. Each one proof that the deadliest weapon isn't the gun, it's the hunter who knows how to use it.